Awesome. So I want to talk about Anglicisms in Cebuano and Anglicisms in this language, right? It's just going to be a brief introduction with Anglicisms in Cebuano, right? So Cebuano has borrowed lots of English loan words as well. So it has a lot of English borrowed words into it, cognates and what have you, but they've been kind of maybe changed in meaning, right? The semantic shift has probably changed a little. And these are just like common like words and stuff like that I just want to talk about. The thing is with Anglicisms in Cebuano, you need to understand the history of American colonization. When the when the Commonwealth era began, that's the 1930s. So we're talking 1934, 35, 30, the 1930s. And after the Commonwealth era, you need to start thinking about the war eras as well. So, Commonwealth, the First World War, the Second World War, the Cold War, and things that were just happening during the communist times until afterwards. We're talking about that era. A lot of English words, borrowed words, and loan words came into the Cebuano language. Now, the Cebuanos have a hard time sometimes with English phonology, or I guess Cebuano speakers have a hard time with the English phonology. So some of these things might have changed or altered in pronunciation, okay? And there are also characteristics in the English language that Cebuano doesn't have with their phonology. So things that were borrowed were heard as what it was said, and that kind of made an impact on how the word was being used. Okay, so this video is just going to show like some Anglicisms in Cebuano and some key things to note about them, right? So during the time when American colonization was, in full swing, so many of these English loanwords came into Cebuano and started replacing some of the Spanish loanwords and some of the indigenous loanwords or indigenous words as well. So don't confuse some of the Anglicisms for actually like Seblish and stuff like that. When in this time, I guess like in the modern times right now, a lot of people tend to just want to use the actual English words itself and then mixing that into Cebuano, and that's what you get Seblish. But there are words that were originally in English that have been borrowed into Cebuano and have been, I guess, Cebuanoized, kind of like made it into Cebuano, like Cebuanoized, I guess, or yeah. So they kind of made their way, and they're officially like Cebuano words now. So these are just words into the Cebuano language that have um, English origin. And I'm just gonna go down. One key thing to note about this is like the consonant clusters, and I'll talk about that. So this consonant, or I guess this d sound, this j from that came from English, right? Some dialects like the of Cebuano has that just sound, so it might be easier for some of these people to pronounce some of these words if you speak a dialect that has a j sound, okay? But the closest written form of the j sound is two letters, d, yeah, right? Dia, right? Remember that j? So we have dirsi, right? Dirsi, which means it's a jersey. It's that clothing, right? The jersey that people wear in sports, stuff like that, right? Dirsi. I actually encountered a little boy who wanted me to buy him a jersey in Davao, and I had a hard time because he had such a thick accent with this dirsi, something like that. So it was a this, and that's what actually gave me this idea of writing Anglicisms in Cebuano. So dirsi, right? The next one is juice, right? Juice, which is juice. And you got to think before, right? The concept of juice did exist in Cebuano before American colonization. They just didn't have a word for all of these sweet drinks collectively known as juice. They would have a specific word for those kind of drinks, like whether it's limonada or some sort of fruit cocktail or juice or whatever, right? They would have a specific word. But now that the English language influenced this Cebuano language, they use this collectively used term called juice, right, for juice. And that's just like all your sweet drinks, whether it's fruit or artificially made or whatever, or in a powder, whatever, right? It's all juice. The next one is jackpot, right? I don't need to explain some of these. And again, when you're translating, when you're looking at the translating or the translation of these words, think about the era of the time when the US or American colonization was really in full swing and all these influences, right? We have things like jackpot, right? From gambling or American style gambling that was brought into the Philippines, right? We have the jazz culture that came into the Philippines, right? That was brought over. These are American concepts, right? Foreign concepts that came into the Philippines during that time of American colonization. Okay, so we're looking again, mid 1900s, 1930s, the Commonwealth era, and into the war era and post war era. So every time I mention post war era, we're looking at that portion of colonization in the Philippines, right? Because in the Philippines, you have to remember we have our indigenous pre-Hispanic times, the Hispanic era, and then the post World War or post war era um, identities, right? So jazz again, that came from the U.S. Yes, right? Duty, to be on duty, whether you're a guard, a soldier, in the military, right? Oh, this person is on duty today. Duty. But look at how duty, right? In American English, we pronounce it as duty, right? It's your duty to do such and such, right? This du, that do, um, had a slight change in pronunciation here. They added a ya to it to make it duty, like duty, right? Instead of duty, right? It would have been duty or duty had this y not appeared. So duty, right? To be on duty. And that's what it is. Whether you're a guard, a nurse, or a soldier, or police, this person is on duty, to be on duty. Um, I don't need to explain jukebox, right? Judo is another concept too that came, right? Judo, when the Japanese came, again, the post-war era, World War II, when the Japanese invaded the Philippines, right? The concept of judo or judo, right? Judo, right? Fighting and like the martial arts fighting. Or remember how you can even add the ista ending for someone who does something. Remember the Hispanic ending, the Spanish ending? Ista for someone who is something. Judista, right? A judo fighter, judista. Um, and the last one for this DY cluster is a DI, right? DI, which is GI, right? Military, again, back in the war eras. So DI, right? GI, which is government issued, right? Government issued. I should know this because I'm a veteran. So DI, GI, government issued. It's just a GI, which people can refer to as like a GI, or a GI Joe or something. That's why a lot of these white people, even if you're not white American or Anglo American or just any white American, if you're not white American and you're still a white person, they'll call you Joe or Hey Joe, because it's a lasting effect of colonization from the United States, right? So screw you, America, because of all that stuff. But okay. Um, this one is a weird one, but it's funny. Aircon, which comes from aircon or air conditioner, right? Or you Americans love to say AC, right? For the Americans that don't know what aircon is, it's AC. The rest of the English speaking world uses aircon. So the British English, Australian English, Philippine English uses aircon, right? But they put it as aircon, right? The American English is just the weird one, right? Canadians, I don't know, you're probably the same. Um, and these are just last examples of like the clusters of that came from Anglicisms, because again, these sounds didn't are not native to Cebuano, like j, sh, and cha. Those are not native in Cebuano. They came from somewhere else. So sia, right? Shampoo, right? Shortcut. This one, sugar daddy, right? Sugar daddy. So all these things, again, you have to start looking when you're looking at these. I know some of these are kind of like weird, like sugar daddy, right? People know what that is, but this was a concept that came over from American colonization. These were just legacies and concepts that were brought over, because prostitution came over. Prostitution has been there too, but the concept of like paying for sex or sex tourism, all that stuff just kind of exploded after American colonization, right? Because of remember the military bases that were there. You have your um, military personnel there that love to look at a little something something, have a little fun, right? And so concepts like sugar daddy and stuff like that came. You have words that's like shot, like shot, right? Shot, siat, or shot, like, to shoot, or sorry, shoot, siat, right? To shoot, to shot, like sharpshooter, sharpshooter, shotgun, shotgun, right? So I don't need to translate these because if you speak English, this is gonna be easy for you, right? Tsokir, a choker. Tsokir, right? A choker. Tsipon, a chiffon, like a chiffon kind of cake, or chiffon clothing, like the cloth. You have check-in, check-out, check-up. Yeah, you have all these things. So just me be I guess the lesson out of this is for the consonants that came from the English language, right, is for you to understand that most of them will be Anglicisms in Cebuano for those sounds, so to speak. So, other than that, I have nothing else to say, but keep in mind some of these things that were translated again were kind of results of the lasting effect of American colonization. And sadly, it does happen still today. But that's life.